We have some remaining stories from Will. We don't know where he is right now. Louis wants to just get these stories out there now. Things have got very complicated with the werewolf, and a lot of stuff is going on we don't really understand. Will's very scary guy, or whatever he is, and yeah, things have got a little bit dangerous. Louis wants to just get the information out there on this YouTube channel. It's not been stopped yet. It's not been that popular either, so we'll get the information out on this. This is another story from Will about his days in the army. It's his time he was standoffish against the sniper. So I hope you enjoy the story. I will just continue with the story. As I ran towards the site of the shooter, I knew that it was likely that I was going to take a couple of shots in order to get one go at him. The area I was in was too open to run from cover to cover unobserved. Even with my superior speed and dexterity, I could not avoid incoming fire. I felt the sniper tense, and I threw myself to the right as the floor where I had just stood exploded with a large caliber shell. They knew their business and what would kill me. I was in my werewolf form, and I could not see my attacker, but I could smell him and hear his breathing and shuffling, clumsy movements. As long as I could make sure my skull was not the site of the shot, I could probably, take anything that he could give me. I ran from cover to cover waiting for the crack of the shot from his 50 caliber rifle. 50 caliber is no joke. It can take out armoured vehicles, so it had been chosen to vaporise the skull of a werewolf. Even I could not repair that. I was waiting to feel the moment where he controlled his breathing to pull the trigger. I would then feel the pre-pressure of the incoming shot so that I could use my jacked up reactions to try and reduce the damage each shot would do. It would really fucking hurt, and it would cause me a super amount of damage, but I would survive and repair eventually, and then get hold of the shitbag. At this point, I was pinned down, my back placed against the thick concrete wall as I waited. I sensed and listened to the sniper, his movements and his breathing. If he left his position, that would mean that at that moment he was not sighted or focused on me. That would be the moment that I moved. I heard the scrape of metal and a cough, so I moved. I leapt the wall before me and ran through the open that the demolished building had created. It had been a trick, I think. This man knew exactly what he was doing, and they knew exactly what I could do and sense. I heard the heart rate of the sniper reduce, and I knew that he was about to shoot, so I tried to launch myself forward, trying to launch myself onto my belly, trying to get flat in order to remove the target from the shot. I heard his breathing stop as he focused and became still. I fell forward as I flew on my face. I knew it was too late and felt the pressure wave of the round leaving the rifle, then the brutal impact of the bullet. It tore into my shoulder girdle, ripping my shoulder and right arm from my body. Blood and broken flesh spattered everywhere about me. A fine mist of plasma stayed in the air for some time as a cloud. I was thrown back with a blow of the bullet as the sound wave of the shot hit me. I crashed to the ground and tumbled back through the debris of the demolished building, looking at the sky and processing the pain that now filled my body. It felt good, and I lay, writhing in ecstasy at the sensations that racked my body. Is it strange to say that they were almost orgasmic in nature? Wave after wave of sensation emanating from the ragged hole that had been my upper torso. I finally laughed as I lay still. No more shots came. I must have been out of sight of the shooter. I stayed down and continued to laugh in my wolfy way. I could already feel my body repairing. It hurt like fuck, but the pain was champagne, a nice form of pain, telling me that I would be back in full functionality in a few moments. My torn-off section of arm sat a short distance away. I watched it as it started to break down. It turned into like a fog that wafted its way against the wind towards me, where it just absorbed back into my body and started to rebuild me. As I lay there, I felt the arm rebuild and then be back under my control. I lifted it and clenched my fist. Right, you cunt up there, in that tower up there. I'm gonna come again. And I rubbed my shoulder and looked at it. It seemed whole. I listened again for the sniper. He was now entirely focused, but how long would he be able to keep that up? I had as long as I wanted. I rolled onto my right side, resting my head on my hand. I needed no sleep or rest. I would be ready as his human system started to slow down and require that rest. I was going to rip this cunt into small chunks after forcing his rifle up his own arse. I relaxed as I urinated on the ground in front of me. As a werewolf, I could really project a long distance. I mean, urination could never be this impressive otherwise. The smell of the shooter's stress had all the hallmarks of the man on the edge. His level of distress was actually like fuel for my anger and revulsion. 2 hours I lay there. He did not move for a long time. I could hear him breathing. He was becoming more and more relaxed. Did he really think that he'd finish me with this single shot? Eventually I could hear his heart rate rise as he began to want to move. He now was in a lot of distress as he was going to have to urinate. Was he going to be stupid enough to take a piss in the corner? He was going to allow me to get up and move. He should be pissing in his pants and keeping his rifle pointing at me. What a fucking idiot. He'd just committed suicide. Suicide by werewolf. He drained himself in the corner of the room. He was in a rush and I could sense all the muscles tense in his body trying to force the urine out of his system. It was a long wee, and after he'd finished, he finally relaxed with an audible sigh. Going back to his post and picking up the bottle of water from the window pane, he drank while looking over at the site at where I had been. Before he could not see me, but he had the option to shoot me if I moved. I now was gone from there, and he had no clue where I was. Now it was my turn to play the psychological games that would fuck with his mind. I fucked him up completely. I wandered slowly to the back of the building, not really stalking my prey. He thought I was still lying on the ground where he'd hit me. I was smiling my toothy grin as I smelt the urine smell get stronger. I picked up a random stone from the ground and broke the silence by throwing it into this open space at the side of the building. This would hopefully wake him up. As the stone landed, he flinched, moving his rifle to the point of the open space that now echoed with the reflected sound waves of the brick that bounced along the floor. It was lucky that he had already relieved himself as panic set in. I think he thought he'd killed me. I smelt the sweat of fear as he realised that the wolf had moved. Well, probably moved. He could not tell what had moved. I loved this shit. He was now shitting his pants, as we say in England. His body temperature rose, and I could sense the dump of adrenaline as his system became loaded with fear. I could hear him now start to panic and fumble around as he tried to find something in his kit. He was struggling as he just lost his fine motor skills to the dump of hormones in his system. He was trying to get prepared for me. At least he was a warrior and not a coward. He was ready to fight me, not quit. I turned back into my human form and sent my posit up to the bell tower stairs to find my prey. I started talking to my new friend. I started with a simple introduction. Hi, my name is Will. I am the werewolf you just shot. I know you probably thought that your big gun killed me, and to be honest, if I'd not been so quick to react, I now would have no head and you would have been successful and a hero. However, I am afraid you did not hit me in the head. You hit me in the shoulder. Now that really hurt and tore a lump of me off. To be honest, luckily, I heal as quick as a motherfucker. So it's fine. So now you have to deal with a pissed off psychotic creature who wants to hurt you. I smiled as I sensed him building the fear in his little human prey body. How are you doing up there? You failed to kill me. Now I'm coming to kill you, my friend. Why not jump from the window? Save yourself some pain time. I'm going to hurt you real bad, my friend. I'm going to torture you and break you. This is going to be fun for me and not going to be fun for you. Oh, and, you've been left behind by your friends to fucking die. You were just there to slow me down for a little while as they take their time to escape. They knew that you could not kill me. They really did not mind you dying. You're not going to be remembered as a hero by anyone. I will catch up with them, then I will kill them as well. My posit werewolf soul had reached the top now and had walked it in on the man, gasping for breath. He was sitting in the opposite corner of the room from the stairs. His arm was outstretched with a pistol ready to kill. He was waiting. He was in panic mode, and it was thrilling. Posit was laughing at him and enjoying his terror far too much. Ah, so you are waiting for me with a Glock. I think that's a Glock 19. I think I'm right. How many in the mag? 15, I think. Do you have any spare bullets? Through my posit's eyes, I watched him then bang around his pockets. He was searching for more ammo, which he could not find. He had 15 shots at the most. I could probably take all of them and still function, but it would be a little annoying. Only 15 shots then, my friend. That's probably enough, huh? Oh, wait a minute. I'm a fucking werewolf who has just survived a 50 caliber round that ripped his shoulder off. I don't think that pop gun is going to hurt me, do you? I tell you what, you throw both your weapons. My posit pointed out that he had a knife in his boot. My mistake, your 3 weapons, including the boot knife, out of the window. He was now in an utter state of terror. He had a mind-reading werewolf waiting for him. He was fucked and he knew it. He did not do nothing. He just kept pointing the gun at the top of the stairs. My posit got in contact. He's not budging, Will. This is going to be like trying to dig a tick out of a dog's arsehole. A dog's arsehole, I said. That's a story I never want to hear, posit. I really never want to know that story. He laughed in response. It's a long and deep story. I started speaking to the soldier again. Okay, whatever your name is, I guess you've decided to do this the hard way. That's fine. I like it the hard way too. Now let's see. How do I get you out of there? I looked around the stairwell. The stone tower was just a shell with a wooden scaffold structure built inside it to support the stairs and the bell at the top of the tower. I climbed back down the stairs a little 1 or 2 and at the base looked at the wooden beams and pillars. Posit, I called. Coming, he laughed. We mixed and I became my black hairy monster, flexing my super powerful arms, and I smiled as I tore one of the supporting pillars out of the structure. The whole tower shook, dust fell, and the bell's clapper touched the bell at the top of the tower with a loud ding. I roared out my rage as I broke the thick post like a twig and threw it to the floor. The tower sagged over the broken support, and the floor slipped, and the respective loads, including the sniper, gently slid down the new gradient that had been created. The man let out a small yell as he slid towards the stairwell. He was managing to jam his feet against the post to stop himself from falling down the stairs and into my waiting claws and maw, and my wet and ready jaw. I stepped out of the tower into the large hall of the building. I did not want all that shit to fall on me, but I wanted to catch the man in flight if I could. I again swiped another support from the scaffold. 2 supports on the one side were gone now, and the floors tilted once more to 45 degrees before it got wedged against the stone. Items clattered down to the ground. Bits and pieces of kit, clothing landed in the floor, happily including the Glock. He must have had to, choose between holding the pistol and holding onto something to secure himself. I smiled yet again. Maybe this would not be any fun, as he was now unable to defend himself against me. I reached and grabbed the base of the tower, one of the remaining supporting posts, and started to shake it with some vigour. Again, spiders, dust, stone and bits of soldiery kit rained from the upper levels of the tower. Also, the sound of a screaming man was added to the sounds of the grinding and cracking building materials. The floors of the tower had all tilted to a degree where now I could see my guy hanging from his arms, his belly to the floor. The floor had now swung 90 degrees. It was so much fun to hear him as I shook and rattled the structure. "Please stop, please, I'm sorry," he yelled in shitty English. I stopped as he endeavoured to get some kind of footing on the wood to drag himself up to a more secure position. As he scrambled, he managed to wedge his boot in between the stone wall and the wood of the sloping floor. The relief he felt was palpable to me. He suddenly had gained himself a little longer to live. His breathing slowed and he started to recover his panic. So I shook the structure again until he slipped and was fully hung from his hands once more. His feet were overhanging a 20-foot drop with a fucking werewolf waiting at the bottom. He scrabbled his feet now on the wooden surface of the wall, trying to climb in his rubberized boots, his fear at the foremost of his brain. I stood below him, wobbling the remains of the construction gently and he was reminded that he had to hold very tight to stay where he was, and that all he could do was hold on. But how long could he actually hold on? His breathing started to get hurried, and he made the mistake of looking down into the eyes of a big fuck-off wolf waiting for his fall. I gave him a big smile as a werewolf and included a little finger wiggle wave. He knew his end was imminent, but the bastard held on like a limpet on a rock. He closed his eyes and managed to stabilise position again. He got grips with his boots and jammed his fingers into the gaps between the wood. Now, it got my ADHD and it started to kick in, and I realised I would probably kill him with the fall. I changed back to my human form, and my posit, although a bit pissed off with the change, let me do my thing. "Okay, my friend, we seem to have ourselves in a little bit of a difficult situation. I tell you what, I'm impressed with your bravery and yada yada whatever. I tell you what, I will catch you if you jump and let you go and stuff. Not torture you for a few hours for my own pleasure. Honestly, Scout's honour, dib dib dib." And I even added the salute. He did not seem to find comfort in my words. Maybe I had not sounded believable in my delivery of the piece. He just hung on to the wood and did not move. "Ah, fuck you then," I shouted as I turned back into my were shape and ripped out another wooden support so the whole tower tumbled to the floor of the building. I was covered in the remains of the fallen building and fucking furious. Honestly, I'd been a bit of a dickhead, but you know what? He was somewhere down here now. I stood up from the wreckage and dusted myself down. It took a while, having a long look around for the evidence of the bastard. That bastard was going to get fucking bastarded. I could smell him somewhere under all the shit. I started digging around and sniffing for the bastarding bastard. I heard a groan from the pile of wood at the corner and slowly turned with a smile, knowing that below the thicket of detritus there would be a little human, all injured, but probably, play ready. And although it did smell like he was failing, he definitely did not need new batteries in order for me to continue with the game. I was going to torture him. I had it well in mind. I sensed the blood pooling now. It pooled below him, and I saw a thick, delicious fluid, and it started to call to my senses of life and joy. Fresh flesh would be mine in a moment, and I would eat wholeheartedly of him after I'd murdered him properly. As I lifted the beams and broken planks from his body, he cried out as the crush that once was reduced and lifeblood came back into his limbs. As his senses came back to him, I saw the look of horror on his face as he focused on my magnificence before him. I wiped my maw with my left hand and bellowed at the man. Spit flew from my ragged grin and speckled him while he tried to cringe away from what was going to be. I leaned further forward and touched him with my nose and just stopped. I paused and waited. The The guy was in total breakdown. His monkey self was in overwhelm and mental devastation. Picking him up by the front of his uniform, I carried him out of the bell tower and to some clear flat land where I could enjoy my fun properly. He screamed as I carried him and clawed at the ground, trying to stop himself from being dragged to where I wanted him. Eventually I found a nice spot for him to die. The building was on a hill and he had a great view of the local countryside, so we were going to enjoy this last view together. I lifted him high in the air, my hand holding his throat. I stared at him, looking deep into his eyes. He fought, his hands coming up to my wrist, but not being able to do anything about the grip. Oh, how the little man fought and screamed at me to let him go. I just slowly added a little pressure to my squeeze. I was robbing his brain of oxygenated blood it needed. There was now a full-bodied panic. He just started to feel himself fade. Oh, he did fight. He fought so hard, and he tried, to rip away my grip, and it was just, he was just too weak, and he would obviously fail to win. He could have taken my life, now I was going to take his. He shook and scrabbled at me. I watched his eyes as the light of life faded in them. His body gave less movement and less life. Closer to death he was with each moment, and then he was gone. I dragged the hat from his head and decided what I was going to do. I was just going to eat. I bit deep into his head and skull and crushed the bones that surrounded the delectable grey matter, the brains. It became available to my mouth and I sucked at the contents and literally wolfed them down. I sat and finished my meal slowly, dismembering the body of the man. Everyone needs to eat though, huh?